Welcome to An Examined Life with Jeff Allen. My name is Ryan Mishler, your host and MC. Jeff, are you there?
I'm always here, Ryan. I never leave the dungeon. It's cold, dark out there in the world, and I like to stay down here where it's warm and fuzzy. Today on Examined Life, we have one of my favorite authors who I've read probably since the 90s, I guess, with How Now Shall We Live. She wrote with Chuck Colson, and one of my other favorites was Total Truth, and we'll get to that, to her books. And my gosh, I don't even know what your proper title is, Ms. Piercy. Are you a professor, doctor?
I am a professor at Houston Baptist University, so that will work.
Yes, and I also you're a visiting scholar, I think, is what I read.
Visiting scholar.
Yes.
Right. So I teach part-time, and then they give me time to write and speak. So it's a wonderful combination. I
got to tell you, I love your work, and for all of you people who are listening to this, please get a library full of Miss Piercy's work. I didn't know about the Soulless Science book. I'm going to go pick that one up. So what else is on the horizon?
Well, I'm currently working on a book on ethical issues on abortion, homosexuality, euthanasia, transgender, and all these other cutting edge. And what I'm doing is I'm doing something that no one else is doing. Most books on the subject are either exegesis, what does the Bible say?
Right.
Or they're moral reasoning, they're by moral philosophers. I'm showing the worldview, the underlying worldview. What is the view of the human person? Because your ethics, you cannot really argue morality directly. You can't just go up to somebody and say, well, that's wrong. Well, why is it wrong?
Right.
It turns out your morality is always derivative from your worldview. So you really have to go a layer deeper and argue the worldview. What is the view of the human person that underlies this? And it turns out that secular thinking is driven by one worldview, a single worldview under abortion, euthanasia, homosexuality, transgenderism, all of these other issues. You don't have to memorize a different argument for each one. They all rest on a common underlying worldview. And based on what we just talked about, you'll understand this. They all rest on a worldview that has a low view of the human person,
right.
A reductionist view of the human person. And that gives us a possibility, then, of making a positive argument. I think we need to get beyond don't. Don't do that. It's wrong. It's a sin. Just stop. That doesn't work. What we can do, though, is argue that that Christianity gives a much higher view of the human person, that the Christian morality actually respects the human person and grants much higher dignity to the human person than the modern reductionist materialist view does. So it's going to give us an opportunity to shift to a much more positive argument that shows that Christianity is appealing and attractive and inviting, and I think it'll give us a different tone as we approach not only secular people, but also our own young people who are still often very confused on these issues.
Well, that's what changed my life, was realizing, and really knowing that I was created and designed. And that changed everything for me. It gave me dignity. I love that word. And self-respect and dignity. And I think that Genesis 1:1, in the beginning, is a good starting point. You were involved, and still, I'm sure, in the intelligent design movement. And we're going to run out of time. There's so much to cover. But what do you think of? I'll ask you this, and then we'll close it out. And I'd love to have you back in a while after you write the new book and discuss it. But ethical humanism, that seems to be the catchphrase now for the humanist movement, is that they kind of realize they get boxed into a corner with ethics and morality in a naturalistic system, because there's not a whole lot of grace and forgiveness in nature. So how do you handle someone who says we can be ethical and within the confines of a machine that they think we are? That we will somehow pull ourselves up and become decent people collectively.
Well, we're made in God's image, so yes, people can be good, but they can't justify it. They can't explain why we're choosing human beings. They can't justify why there's an objective morality on the basis of their own views. And in fact, they can't even be humanists, let alone the ethical part, because humanism is the view that humans have some sort of special dignity, that they have some sort of special status over against the rest of nature. And there's a British philosopher these days, who's contemporary, whose name is John Gray.
Oh,
and he is an extreme materialist, and he is forever castigating humanists.
Right, I know.
Being inconsistent. He says, look, you humanists are all materialists like me. You know, you think we're just glorified matter. You think we just evolved out of the slime by natural causes. So why do you think there's any basis for human dignity, for human status being higher than the rest of nature? Logically speaking, you guys, you have no basis for what you're saying. And you know why you're saying it? You're saying it because you're grabbing that from Christianity. This is John Gray.
Right, yeah.
He says the atheist attempt to have human dignity is just a derivative of Christianity. He has countless articles on this subject where he says you're cheating, you're freeloading. In my book Finding Truth, I quote one atheist. His name was Richard Rorty, who admitted that he was borrowing from Christianity. He said, "Look, I'm an atheist, I'm a Darwinist, I'm an evolutionist, and in the struggle for existence, the strong win out." And the weak are left behind. So that cannot be the basis for universal human rights. So what is the basis? He says, well, I just have to reach over and freeload from Christianity. He called himself a freeloading atheist and said, I realize I don't have a basis. I have to borrow from Christianity. And I think that's what we have to help them to see. And it's great. In Finding Truth, I love being able to show it from the mouths of other atheists.
Right.
You know, if it was a Christian saying that, they would be more likely to dismiss it. You know, you're just arguing your own case. But when atheists are saying, look, you cannot have an atheist view of human dignity, you guys are just borrowing from your Christian heritage. That's one of the best ways to design your apologetics, I think, is to look at the ways in which secular people seem to recognize that something is missing. You know, when they reach over and borrow from Christianity, that's their way of admitting, our system doesn't give us this. We have to borrow it from you. So that's in Finding Truth, I say, build your apologetics on those areas where secular people themselves recognize their system breaks down. Because then you know that you're answering the questions people really have. You know, you've seen that Bubba Sticker, if Jesus is the answer, what's the question?
Right, exactly.
Christians have a tendency to answer the questions that nobody's asking.
Right.
So this is one way we can make sure we are answering the relevant questions by looking at where secularists themselves are acknowledging the system doesn't give them what they need. It's not giving them a basis for morality, dignity, special status for human beings above the rest of nature. Just find where they're freeloading.
Yeah, I saw it. I had a guy get a hold of me on Twitter once. I just made a comment that Christianity was the only worldview that tells the strong they have to reach down and help the weak. And you don't get that from a Darwinian worldview. And the guy tweeted me back. He said, Darwin is not a worldview. And I said, well, you need to tell Google, because when I Googled Darwinian worldview, 2.5 million pages came up. And we got into a little dialogue, and he says, well, you're not reading the New Atheists. So I went to a couple of their websites, and you're right. They freeload. I was reading the chat threads. They have these conventions for the atheist conventions. And the people were saying we need to be more charitable. In the chat thread, we atheists need to be more charitable. And the honest ones are going, why? Do we have to be more? And as I began to read it down, I just realized, I said, they're backdooring the Christian ethic to make it appealing. And you're right, John Gray. He's a little heady for me. I've read his stuff, and then Peter Singer, who I think has now come out and said that it's about personhood, not humanity, because the life in the womb is a human being. So now it has to be about personhood, and I think he's advocating the ending of children's lives up to 4 or 5 years old or something. I don't know, but that's at least an honest look where it could go if you're nothing more than a bunch of cells.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you just put the finger on the theme of my next book, which is they have such a low view of the human person, of the human body, of humanity, that if you're just let's take the issue of abortion. People say, well, abortion's okay until it becomes a person. At which point you say, well, what was it before, and why didn't it have any dignity before?
Right.
Why do you have such a low view of humans as biological beings? It's a fragmented view that says, on the one hand, you're just a human, you're a body, and the worldview that we have from science, not really just science, because I don't think science itself was rested on a Christian worldview. So let's say materialist science. The worldview we have from materialist science says your body is just a piece of matter. It has no dignity, no purpose. There's no teleology, which is just a fancy name for saying that you have a meaning or a purpose. There's no teleology since Darwin. That was Darwin's main goal, was to get rid of the sense of design or purpose in nature. So as long as you're just biologically human, you have no status or dignity, you have no moral standing, there's no reason to give you legal protection.
Right.
And then suddenly, in some magical way, you are transformed into a person.
Right.
There's no way to identify when or how or even what personhood is. And so it's kind of this magical, mystical thing that happens. And it turns out that that's pretty much at the heart of all of our moral issues, is this fragmented view of the human person. And you're right, it starts out with such a low view of who we are biologically speaking. It gives Christians an opportunity to say, no, even our biology is a creation of God. And even our biology has dignity and value and worth and moral standing.
Right. Wow. Well, we're going to have to leave it at that. And I can't thank you enough for taking this time to do this. I hope we can do it again. And I get down to Houston every now and then. I would like to invite you out to my show one night and just get a chance to meet you.
I would love that. Yes, I looked at some of your videos, and I really enjoyed them.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I have less hair now. It's the thing about YouTube is it just never goes away, So it's like somebody else send me a copy of one of my own YouTube videos, and I'll look and go, oh my God, I actually I didn't age at all. Look at that, how wonderful.
You looked at it and said, who's that?
Exactly. Well, it's funny, my son, somebody wrote a book about Chicago comedians recently, and I had a picture. They took a picture of me when I started back in 1978 or 79. And my oldest son looked at it, and after about 10 seconds, he goes, "Is that you?" I said, "Yeah, I was young once too. I know that's hard to believe." So, anyway, thank you so much. Again, folks, I can't tell you enough to pick up Ms. Piercy's books, Nancy Piercy, and then go to thepiercyreport.com and keep up on the cultural issues and. From a lot of it's from a biblical perspective, as well as just news in general, especially with the election year coming, and I'll help you sort out some stuff. So, thank you so much, Professor, and I will reach out later. I don't know what else to say.
Thank you. Well, thanks for having me, and I would really look forward to seeing one of your shows. That would be great.
Thank you much. Well, be blessed. Have a great day.
You too.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. And remember, for more great podcasts, check out esquaredmedianetwork.com. That's E2medianetwork.com. They have a lot of great podcasts out there with actually some people that we've interviewed on our show here too. Well, is there anything else you wanted to cover today?
No, that'll do it, son. And again, I cannot tell you enough. I keep pounding this drum home. Know what you believe, why you believe what you believe, and then gauge the culture. And as Ravi Zacharias always says, you deal with the questioner first. And as Ms. Piercy just said, apologetics comes from love. And the only way you can love on another human being is at least to listen to what they have to say. And if they don't know the questions, at least know what the questions are, and perhaps you could provide them with the questions and therefore the answers to the confusion. We're living in a tough time now. It's a tough time to be young. I think there's a lot of competing worldviews out there, and I believe wholeheartedly that the Christian worldview answers all of the questions of life. All those other worldviews will fall short, and that's where the word reductionism comes in. You have to reduce something, put it into the box, and make it fit. And if it doesn't fit, then you'll have legs and arms hanging out of the box. So anyway, Nancy Piercy, thepiercyreport.com. How Now Shall We Live, Total Truth, book on science and worldview, Saving Leonardo on the culture and the arts, and then Finding Truth, 5 principles for unmasking the myths of secular worldviews. So anyway, take care, guys. God bless you. Till next time, this is Jeff Allen. Bye-bye. If you like what you heard here, check out the E Squared Media Network at www.esquaredmedianetwork.com. That's www.2medianetwork.com for even more entertaining and encouraging podcasts and videos.